So I teach at Florida International University. We have Academy for International Disaster Preparedness. I teach at Nova Southeastern University. We have a master's in disaster management and a PhD with a disaster management concentration. St. Leo University, undergraduate, graduate, and then Georgetown University. So, and Leanna is a graduate
Yes.
of my program. So she's a former student, a recovering student is what I like to call
Trauma bond over here.
So, but she can speak that when I give lectures, I'm very dynamic in the lectures, and I pull a lot of research and data and information, including like what's going on in the state legislature for that legislative session related to emergency management. I said there are things that are coming down the pike that are going to have an impact to us and to the communities we serve. So we need to be ahead of that information and data. But in addition to that, there's a lot of research that's been generated here in the last few years. And emergency management is a new profession. It's been around for, I can say, since probably 1979 when FEMA was founded. I don't know what's going to happen with FEMA in the future, but it'll exist in some form. So we're relatively young in that space. But if you look at fire service, extremely old, 250 years old, law enforcement, a little bit older than that. The modern medical practices are only about 125 years old, and they've advanced a long time in that. However, but the research that we have going into disaster preparedness, response, recovery, mitigation is plentiful. The problem is most people at the user end as a student or as an emergency manager, or as a practitioner or an elected official, they don't discern those tables and data fields in a very easily digestible way. So it needs to be broken down into what we call firefighter-proof terms, which is very easy to understand and accept. So if we can make it simple for them. So for example, if we have research that is talking about disaster recovery and the impacts to communities and those that are from low-income socioeconomic communities and long-term recovery, that's a mouthful. But if we distill it down to short bits of information that is reliable data, that is confirmed through empirical research that says this is the result, this is the impact, and this is the recommendations for it. Very succinctly in a one-pager executive summary, it makes it a lot easier to get policy enacted and change to occur. So it's a big challenge, but it also starts at the local level with college students and at elementary schools, quite honestly. If you teach some of these skill sets to kids in school, they're gonna be more rounded as a citizen, but also something unique happens. Years ago, when I was the emergency manager at the Seminole Tribe, have you ever heard of the Early Achievers program? I believe it's called. A lot of financial literacy and all that. So we had a city that was set up that they designed with here's banks and here's agriculture and here's warehouses, etc. And so then I came in there and says, okay, now this disaster has happened in your community. What are you going to do? And it was very interesting to see what the kids, after we gave them a lecture about disaster preparedness, what they were focusing on. It was very unique because they were generating these points of interest and response, not from a lights and sirens aspect, but resiliency in the community, healthcare, home services, getting the businesses and schools started. So they were looking at it more through the context and paradigm that I didn't think that they would. So then by taking that as the precipice to we need to educate them more about disasters and disaster recovery and vulnerability and how we as a community can come together, that is going to make the difference for us long-term in a community.
I don't know if you've heard much of earlier in the day storytelling, where we've been counseled again and again, instead of using all of our fintech blockchain wording to make it easy to understand.
Yep.
And you were talking about keep it really simple, the firefighter
proof it.
Yeah. Well,
my boss is a former fire chief, so I say it to him all the time.
Well, Congress proof it. So in going to Capitol Hill, and you've got people who I'm sure are really smart in whatever it is they do, but you try to explain what we do and fintech and money movement, transparency, and their eyes glaze over. You tell a good story. We've moved legislation with a good story.
Absolutely, 100%. And we as emergency managers, as a profession, as an industry, we don't do very well at marketing ourselves. Yeah. It's just because we just do the work. And we're not expecting the pat on the back. We're not expecting to be recognized by the media because the cops are going out there and saving people. The firefighters are getting the cats out of the trees. We're doing everything on the before end and the after end, and no one really knows that we're there. And that's kind of a good thing, but we need to be able to sell that a little bit better to the community and also to the elected officials so that we can move these mountains a little bit easier.
Well, if we can, I'm writing stuff down, right? So it's going to happen. Come back and discuss. There's a whole body of research, right? There's not a whole body of research on money. We actually went out and took a look. And if you look at the 990s, which is the tax forms for nonprofits, they don't have to report how much money went to people. Mm-hmm. It's a program. It's this lump of dollars. So if we could add the existing research and couple it with the fintech dollars to show, I mean, U.S. Chamber has a resilience study out that says $1 spent in preparedness is $13 in ROI.
Yeah, for mitigation.
Yeah.
And it's even more when it's in areas that are more subjected to climate change.
Well, and we've been talking all day about preparedness, and if you got money to people before the disaster.
Correct.
And they could get the water baffles and the blue tarps. Mm-hmm. But that in the U.S., less than 60% of Americans have $500 for emergency. Mm-hmm. Can't evacuate, mm-hmm. can't buy what they need. And so you've got a whole room full of folks that can help make sure that money gets to them with guardrails mm-hmm. to be used for that purpose.
Correct. And also, I'll just add to that the vast majority of your local governments would be insolvent with these disasters that occur if it wasn't for the assistance of the state or federal government as well. So
that's a whole other topic with the change.
Exactly.
Well, you had a meeting today because I know we had to change.
Lots of meetings. So I appreciate being flexible and allowing me to come here. So.
Well, that's a lot of the question has been with the changed role of the federal government in disaster. What's the impact of? We've seen staffing cuts, but not budget cuts. So the money's there. It's just a matter of how's it going to go out.
So at the local level, we've experienced budget cuts and staffing cuts. But that, when you juxtapose that against the cuts at the federal level for support, the Fed will be there to some capacity, but they're not going to be there the way they have been in the past, traditionally. So the federal government had asked local governments, you need to be more reliant on yourselves, which to a degree is acceptable and is good. However, there's a lot of communities that are vulnerable to disasters, that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, that they don't have the staff and the expertise and knowledge to let alone do the response and the recovery and the mitigation. So if you look at 3/4 of the counties in Florida are rural counties. Most of Florida doesn't look like outside this window. Yep. It looks very rural, where they have more cows than they do people. And they have an emergency manager that has other duties as assigned, as the public works person, as the fire marshal, as etc. They have to know all sorts of laws, legislation, statutes. They have to be able to have volunteers to help support them, call centers, they can't do that. So where are they going to get the support from? It has to come from the state or federal government.
One of the things you've shared about your approach to government now long-term recovery is you treat it like a business.
Absolutely.
And so we've talked about staffing and budgets. We've got a room full of folks here who move money. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about what you'd like, I guess for all of you, what would be helpful to see out of the financial services community in this preparedness, response, recovery, and then resilience?
It's still, to me, I mean, as I say, we're almost done with $1 million in funding. And last year, local nonprofits would say, why aren't you telling everybody what you're doing? I'm like, because setting up the supply chain is the most important thing, so that we're not saying, this is what we're going to do. We can say, this is what we did do, so we've got a proof of concept. But I hope to get more funding. And as I say, with the supply chain, there are 9 cities in Florida that have both a home builders association and a community foundation. That partnership, we've shown how that can work together to establish that relationship in your own communities, and for you guys to help push that along. That doesn't cost you anything. And that's, to me, I mean, my wife gives me my office space for free. I'm like, everything I'm looking at is to not overspend. I don't want to raise anything beyond the capacity of what we've got to, that we can handle to keep rebuilding houses. But it's, last year, 33,000 hours of volunteer service from our coalition of faith-based organizations at a total of $1.1 million. I mean, we've got the case study to show, things like this are worthwhile to invest, because we've talked about it. How much money did local businesses in Augusta lose after Helene because we weren't, completely prepared? But we're trying to to develop a model to share with other cities throughout the Southeast in particular, because nobody is thinking about the next hurricane. But I'm like, okay, look at, Melissa, 180 mile per hour sustained winds. I'm not a climate scientist, but if that had gotten into the Gulf, and the chances are that one is, so I want a model to take to other communities throughout the Southeast.
Absolutely. Yeah, what do you think?
I would say more of connect with us on a county level, because we are that connecting piece to all the other nonprofit, faith-based groups and private sector partners as well. And so for me, it would make my job easier, right? Being able to support our partners in that aspect. So when the government shutdown happened in October, the CBP, Custom Border Patrol, and TSA, their employees didn't have any ways of coming into work or anything like that, right? And so one of our partners, Jewish Community Services, along with GEMS, they provided gift cards or cash cards. And so imagine this one organization, this one person has to go to 7 different gas stations just to get a $25 gas card, because that's what they wanted to provide. And we were like, absolutely, totally cool, right? But she ended up coming like almost an hour and a half late to the event. It was a major event. The mayor was there. So many other political officials were there as well. And so it made her job harder, which made my job harder, right? And then it made his job a little harder too, to manage all of that. And so I would say connect with us, be a part, or at least join in on those meetings that we have, those 30-minute sessions. So like that, you can see who our partners are, how you guys can best connect with them as well, and any, services that can go with that.
I think she's underselling how great of a campaign that was.
Yeah.
So, and
She always does.
so this is what happens. So we have FIFA World Cup coming up, and we have all sorts of things that we do. Last year alone, I attended 300 meetings on FIFA, just myself. So we had, I think it was whenever this happened.
Training.
So we had a FIFA meeting with all our partners for preparedness. And the federal security director for TSA for the Miami airport, who is the deputy federal coordinator for FIFA for Southeastern United States. I asked him during the shutdown, I said, how's things going for your team? I said, it's pretty tough. We're coming up on, I think that it was like 30 days at that point. He says, oh, we're getting by. It's tough. A lot of them, they're just above poverty line, this and that. I said, okay, well, we have this program called CORE. We have private sector, nonprofit, faith-based, etc. We do disaster response, but we can also do other responses like this. Would that be of value for your team? And he says, I think so. So I immediately call up Leanna. I said, Leanna, we're going to do this. Let's get this going. And so she got all these partners to come together to do these donations for these individuals. And we ran hundreds and hundreds of federal workers that are only making just above minimum wage down here in Southeast Florida, which is terrible. But we were able to set this up for a couple of weeks, and we did this campaign, and it really, you saw people tear up. And they're humble people. Like they don't want to be there, but they have to feed their family. So more assistance from this group makes that delivery of service and aid to those that need it before, during, and after a crisis much, much better, much easier.
Well, I remember you telling the story of that, and we got to explain, well, if we planned just a little bit in advance, it could have been an account issued that was just for fuel, with the guardrails to be just for fuel, so that person wouldn't have been late an hour and a half. But I'll tell a quick story. The CEO of one of the largest NGOs, we were at an event, and she came up and she said, somebody told me I have to talk to you. Okay, great. And she said something about money, about moving money. And I said, okay, well, how do you move money to people, and what kind of data do you have? Well, we're very efficient, and we have lots of data. Okay, tell me what happens. Disaster hits, you deploy your armies of volunteers and staff. She says, well, we know we need gift cards, so we have our individual employees go with their personal credit card, and they go to CVS and Walgreens, and they buy the cards off the Visa or MasterCard off the hook until their card fraud's out. And then the next one does it. And then the next one does it. And I'm trying not to, overreact. And I said, so you have data? Well, yeah, we know that Denise went and bought 100 cards for $100, and we know they went to this deployment site. Do you know if the money was spent? Do you know what it was spent on? Do you care? And she said, well, you can't, that's impossible. So it was an opportunity, and this is where we've been talking about storytelling and getting the story out. If all of us collaborate, the only loser is the fraudsters. And they know we don't, they know we don't coordinate as well as we should. But imagine, that would have been so easy. And it wouldn't have even had to have been a piece of plastic. It could have been, Connie, your story of being in the emergency center and the older lady with the prescription. Tell that one, because it was an electronic payment. She downloaded it?
Yeah, so we used the QR code, we got the card downloaded on her wallet, and she after it was all said and done, we had to explain it to her the way that we explained to everybody else, that this is tap to pay, it's ready to use right now, and you're good to go use it. She was like, so you're saying I can just go to the grocery store right now and just tap to pay? And I was like, exactly. That's exactly what you can do. And so, it was simple enough to where she was like, okay, I can do this. I can click on the wallet app, I can open the card, and I can tap. Good.
Well, the story you had told before was that she had gone to all those other tables, however many there were in this relief center, and yours was the only one she could go buy her prescription with. The other ones you had to wait however many days or whatever it was. So that's meaningful. That's readiness.
Absolutely. And I also think that if we would have met earlier, I think more of our partner organizations would have been able to provide other cash cards as well, because they also have a process and they're like, well, we can do it, but we have to order them in advance, and you should have told us like 10 weeks ago. And, but if you're here, you're already connected and already invested in that, maintaining that relationship with our partners, then, the more the merrier, right?
Well, that's the whole relationship thing. So the worst thing is to meet in the emergency operations center.
Yeah.
It is too late. Whatever you do is going to be goofy.
Maybe now. You want to have my card.
I can also attest to Liana's greatness as well, is that, and I'm sure, Professor, you can chime in, the fact that not every county runs this.
Oh no.
Like, this is not the norm. Okay, this court thing that she's created is so not the norm. They're like creme de la creme as far as counties go. This is not the way that every county operates.
We have a dedicated person. That's the reason why. A lot of other counties, so I was deployed to Taylor County, which is like the armpit of Florida. And so, so I was deployed over there for about 10 days, and they had nothing. So imagine going in ground zero, nothing. I didn't have a volunteer in sight. I just had a little old lady that was riding with me the entire time and was like, I have like 5 other girlfriends that can help you with the call center. And I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? So we didn't have that, but I felt at that moment in time, I felt alone, but I also knew I have a village back home that I can rely on. And so I called. At that time, we had 64 members. And so I called and I emailed and I texted all 64 members. I told them, hey, I need your help. I'm going to Taylor County. I don't have any friends over there. Can you help me over there? About like almost 20 of our partner organizations that technically serve Miami-Dade County were like, hey, we're on our way up there. We'll see you out there. I met them on site and we had a game plan, and we were passing out aid quickly and fast. Gem that has their own system, their own place. I asked Kimberly and I was like, hey, look, I know this is outside of your scope, but do you think you can help me put this aid in your box truck and then just start distributing it out to all those families? She's like, absolutely. So it's just me and her and probably one other volunteer, and we're just throwing stuff in her box truck, just going out, right? And again, like, CORE is unique. Right. It started in 2010. FEMA provided us that grant to start it up. They saw something in Miami-Dade County and in other cities as well. And so we just continue to run with it and just try to re-engage our folks again. COVID was a major downfall during that time. And then, with the limited staffing as well, it didn't help, right? And so now with the new administration, we were able to have a dedicated person that can support those partner organizations. And so now the feedback that we get from our partner organizations are like, wow, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for connecting us more into emergency management so we could just get the job done.
The underlying theme of that is trust as well, because a lot of people, organizations want to give, but they don't have a trusted agent that they can give to, and that's a problem. That's a hindrance, and it's through relationships and the outreach and collaboration that gets done. And you've had the same experience.
Oh, yeah. I had an 86-year-old lady call me the other day after a local TV station did a report on our work, but she said, "Thank God you're in the middle of this because I trust you." And that for 20 years of building these trusting relationships and not violating anybody's trust. But it's in our nonprofit community, there is, no trust between organizations. It is unbelievable. I'm like, what? But I hope we're garnering their trust. But had one CEO of a local nonprofit that asked me, "Why are you bringing in all these people from elsewhere to do the work?" And I'm like, "Well, these people are uninsured or underinsured and they can't afford a contractor." She said, "Well, we've got people that can do that." So when we tallied up the 33,000 hours of volunteer service last year, I sent her a thank you note for the meeting and just put that in there too. Thank you very much.
So we've got some time left. Are there questions? Then I'm going to ask you guys if you've got a final message to our text.
Have you ever been limited? You're probably gonna say yes to this in manpower, but your planning scope, right? So as I look at what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, have you ever been hindered or restrained on how far or how much you can pre-plan, or the scope at which you can pre-plan?
That's a good question. I think that we have the ability to do a lot of that pre-planning. We don't have a lot of, in general, we don't have a lot of support to do that long-term pre-planning.
Okay.
Because there's not an immediate return on that investment. It's the same thing with mitigation. Like, why would we spend $600,000 to do this culvert to prevent flooding if we don't know if it's ever going to happen? A lot of the emphasis is behind, I want to see immediate results. The elected officials, senior officials, and communities, they want that. Even donors, they want to see something right away. So I think we're limited by that, but there's an ongoing opportunity to showcase the relationships, the partners, and the what ifs through storytelling to make a difference and compress that curve a little bit more. Good question.
Others?
Ron doesn't have a question?
I'm sorry, Jesse. My questions are all about people and all the planning you're doing.
That was amazing. So do you each want to close out with a message to Roomful of Fintechs and blockchain and quantum?
I would just say invest in what's working, invest in models that are working. But I would also say to see your community healed at the grassroots level and see old walls come down and be replaced with bridges of trust and hope. It is a wonderful thing. And I tell people, I'm like, look, 99.9% of the people that live in this nation will never have an impact on Washington, D.C. The world begins outside your front door. So if we can work together at the local level, there's nothing we can't do. And I think that's the message, because what I found too is we kept our nose to the grindstone, got the work done last year. But now that I'm sharing this story with people internally, so many people, I think when you look at the news, people feel so, powerless to do anything. And I'm like, no, this is going on. And as long as you don't have a personal, or a hidden agenda, then you're welcome to come work with us. Be a part of this, be a part of rebuilding your community and serving your neighbors, because it sure feels good.
Build bridges of trust.
Mm-hmm. I would say that there's an opportunity on the Blue Sky Days to get more involved. Work with your local non-government, nonprofit, faith-based, and the government agencies like how CORE brings them together to do that strategy planning for the what-if situations. Tornadoes, fires, floods, hurricanes, avalanches, whatever it is. Okay, we have lots of hazard categories. and you do a little advanced planning, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but it's something to bring people to the table and look at, okay, prior to something happening, this is what we can do, this is who we should communicate with. Disaster plus 24 hours, this is what we can do, this is who we should contact in the long term. Plan it out very easily. It's through simulation and games. We do some gamification in emergency management. That's an opportunity for you to get involved in that collaborative space as well, because we can't do it alone in government. Nonprofits, faith-based, they can't do it alone. It needs to be a collective will of everyone that's able to help support that. So that would be my advice for all of you very smart and brilliant, good-looking people out there.
I would say the same. Be a part of our village, be a part of those meetings, ask questions as well. Meet me now, do not meet me later, because I don't have time. And I'll be super busy during that time, right? And so I want to be able to do that warm connection to our partner organizations as well. Just so like that, it has that lasting effect on you as well. So you too can also understand who this organization is and how they provide a service to the community. I live in this community. I'm born and raised and gonna be maybe here forever, who knows? But I still strongly believe that it starts at the local level, right? And so having you guys here is a great opportunity for us as Miami-Dade County to let you know we have a great partnership with our organizations. They trust us, and that's very rare. In a lot of other counties, that's rare. And so join us, be a part of us, and, let's get the party started.
Where can they find out more about POR?
Email me, core, DEM, at miamidade.gov.
It's an amazing group that you have on that. So unless there's questions, we have an extra long break. There's coffee, there's, I think, cookies back there, but this is really about you all meeting each other and not in the EOC. So thank you to our panel.